George Elombi, the Vice President of the African Export-Import Bank, says about 30 African countries have indicated their commitment to attend the Intra-African Trade Fair in Cairo later this year. CNBC Africa's Kenneth Igbomor caught up with him on the sidelines of the Intra-African Trade Fair engagement session in Abidjan to explain strategies to deepen trade in Africa.
I think it's an excellent opportunity. It's all about trade information, about bringing together buyers and sellers from our different countries, bringing together the producers, making them see what's happening elsewhere. And for a country like Côte d'Ivoire, which is a major economy in the sub-region, this is a tremendous opportunity.
I would like to get the level of traction you're seeing so far.
Tremendous. In the report we had this morning, earlier this morning in meetings, we had the registrations are going up. The number of countries which have indicated they are participating of the 55 countries or so in the continent, we already have somewhere around 30 which have indicated participation. So the figures are high. We also have participants from corporations and banks, some banks are proposing to bring 100 each of their clients. So we're looking forward to quite a tremendous participation in Cairo in December.
So in the area of market information, how are you helping countries know better what their neighbors need and how they can provide them?
That's really where we saw in Afrexim Bank, we saw the challenge in African trade, in intra-African trade. We trade quite much with the rest of the world, but the real key reason that we saw for that trade not happening within African countries is the lack of information, sometimes quite very basic information. And so we thought this trade fair will go a long way. We have other initiatives to address that question of the failure of information. And that failure, that lack of information is also affecting, you would be surprised, even the banks, the financial services. It's not that, from our experience, it's not that obvious. You would think that so many in Egypt are aware of what banks in Nigeria have capacity to do certain kinds of business. And there is not that much in Kenya which are aware of what banks in Ghana are able to interact with them or take the risk of those banks if they confirm letters of credit for, say, Ghanaian buyers from Kenya. So that lack of information is the gap which we think there is need as an institution for us to begin to find ways to address.
So it's very interesting times we're seeing in Africa with coming on board of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. How would you say this is helping push the Intra-African Trade Fair?
It's an extremely giant move, actually. In Afrexim Bank, we had an initiative, a target, to get to a certain percentage of intra-African trade, somewhere around 20%. But the CFTA would make that possible within 2 years for us, for something we had planned over a period of 5 years. So the CFTA, if implemented from the moment of implementation, it's going to radically change very many things for us. They have to open those borders.
So, but what are you doing to also reduce the import-export procedures between countries?
Again, it's all about that information. We shouldn't have much. But obviously the question of non-tariff barriers, tremendous headache, the bureaucracy, the transport infrastructure, all of that, so much of it is being addressed by different parties in different ways. The infrastructure institutions are dealing with the integration infrastructure facilities, roads, power stations, and we just thought, as a financial institution which specializes in trade, that we should deal with those aspects which we thought we were best at. And that's why we thought bringing the traders together for us is really quite critical now. That's the reason for this. We're also working on a payments platform. That's another barrier. It's a payments platform. It's easier to make a payment to Europe than to make a payment to another African country, and we therefore want to make it easier for the traders to get paid without moving. We're putting that payment platform in place. But in addition to that, we're also putting in place a Know Your Customer platform so that they just get to know themselves And those African traders also get known abroad with some degree of credibility.
So for agencies that have to do with trade for countries, for example, like the customs, how are you getting these agencies to work together, on the continent?
Campaigning, publicity, taking the information to them, speaking to the ministers who are responsible for these and making them understand that there is need to just get a little fire in the back of the civil servants, get them to move. And we think it's only by doing that on a permanent basis. We work with the African Union, which the Trade Commission of the African Union has been extremely instrumental, and we're grateful to them. And we take all of that together so that people become a little more aware of it. It's the lack of information. The flow is slow. We need to put it up.
Finally, before I let you go, I'd just like to know the level of deal making you like to see happen in December for you to say it has been a success.
Well, you'll have to come to Cairo in December to find out, but it's just no way that you put together, as we hope to do, somewhere maybe up to 6,000, 8,000, maybe 10,000 players in the African Trade Fair, in African production and manufacturing and distribution, the power system and so on. There's just no way you're going to bring those together without having tremendous large deals. And that's why many of them are involved in the sponsorship of the initiative. It's certainly their businesses, and they don't do that for free. It's because of the gains which they see to themselves that they have undertaken to support that.